and it's the 6th chapter of the Dhammapada. And it really is just another teaching that kind of follows all of the teachings in this series about about right Dhamma practice, what it looks like, what it feels like, some of the pitfalls that we all encounter as Dhamma practitioners. And again, it's just practical advice on how to do it. The Buddha's words: "It is always beneficial to associate with a wise person who has the courage to point out faults and foolish actions." A lot of the Dhamma, in fact, 99% of the Dhamma, is recognizing and abandoning our own faults and our resulting foolish actions that are rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. And so a Dhamma teacher, an effective Dhamma teacher, will have the courage to actually stand up to that. Even that admonition is contradicted by the developments in society to where they are today, where only certain things are acceptable and everything has to have a positive bent to it. Well, that's just the essence of ignorance, isn't it? Because the Buddha starts out with teaching us that the world isn't always positive. Dukkha arises. The wise and the courageous know how to address that and how to understand it. We don't run from it. We don't shun it. But we also don't create scenarios about how to legislate against it because we want to understand it. There's a significant difference. And I'm going to touch more on that in 2 weeks on a Saturday. I'm during the Salata Sutta because it points directly to that. The Buddha continues: "Follow the wise as one follows a path to hidden treasure. The wise will teach the truth. They will admonish foolishness and provide true refuge. They are criticized by the ignorant. The wise who teach the truth, admonish foolishness, and provide true refuge are held dear by those who are seeking Heartwood." Of course, those that aren't seeking Heartwood will be challenged by anyone who's speaking the truth as it relates to the Dhamma. If you're a modern Buddhist, you'll be challenged by what the Buddha actually taught, or if it's any other belief system that you're hoping to maintain. If you're a devout Republican, you're always going to be threatened by devout Democrats, aren't you? The underlying teaching here is to recognize that any view is a pernicious and hurtful view if it's held against someone or against some situation. Why? Because the situation or the person is present in the world. So to think that it's even effective to say no, 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 or even more effective to scream and holler about it, is simply rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. I'm going to read that last line. "They are held dear by those seeking Heartwood. Abandon ignorant associations. Avoid fellowship with the fools. Associate with the wise and seek fellowship with noble ones." Noble ones are, and again, remember the Buddha is talking about Dhamma practitioners. He's not telling us that as Dhamma practitioners we should isolate everyone who's not a Dhamma practitioner. But as Dhamma practitioners, we'll associate our Dhamma practice with likewise Dhamma practitioners, authentic Dhamma practitioners. Seek fellowship with noble ones. The wise are immersed in the Dhamma and live with happiness and tranquility, as opposed to look out in the world. Look what's been going on now and for all human history. The wise are immersed in the Dhamma and live with happiness and tranquility. It's a promise from the Buddha that's still bearing fruit today, isn't it? The wise delight in the Dhamma taught by the Buddha. Irrigators, read that again. Irrigators direct rivers, fletchers straighten arrows, carpenters shape wood. The wise restrain themselves. The essence of a Dhamma practitioner, just as the essence of a carpenter is to shape wood, the essence of a Dhamma practitioner is to restrain themselves, to not always be grasping after something, especially grasping after something that may cause me to lose my mind, even though the people that I may be associating with are all losing their minds. I don't have to. I have learned to restrain myself as a Dhamma practitioner, just as a carpenter molds wood. A rock, the Buddha's words, a rock lies undisturbed by the wind. What a beautiful line, isn't it? The ever-changing nature of the world. But as Dhamma practitioners, we're like the rock in the wind. Nothing affects us. The wise remain unmoved by praise or blame. Like a deep and pure lake, the wise hear the true Dhamma and are perfectly purified. It's just beautiful words. The wise renounce all clinging. The wise do not talk foolishly of their desires, which is such a common thing today, or encouraged to talk about. And this is not just recently, this is really my whole lifetime with this idea of creative visualization and grasping after your bliss. We're encouraged to do this, aren't we? To try to establish something that is simply not present and can never be present. But there's whole philosophical systems that are designed to instigate that fabricated behavior in us, rather than taking a breath and simply being at peace with what's occurring. I don't need and I cannot add anything to this self, this six-propertied self. I can learn new things. Most importantly, I can learn the Dhamma, but the only thing that I can change is the way that I think. In fact, the only way that I can change the world is to change the way that I think, because that's the only control that I have. I can't change anybody else's thinking except possibly by my own example. The wise remain calm through harshness or sorrow. Through happiness or sorrow. One is indeed virtuous, righteous, and wise who refrain from any wrongdoing for themselves or others. In other words, refraining from any wrongdoing for ourselves or others, meaning we don't participate in something that even tacitly approves other people doing something that is hurtful. And that is simply often by just associating with someone and giving them the support that they gain by their association. And that's such a critical thing today, to be careful who we're associating and what we're actually supporting. Because if we really care about peace in the world, we'll support the Dhamma. One is indeed virtuous, righteous, and wise who do not crave for sons, for wealth, for power, or undeserved success. Boy, that last one is so prevalent today, isn't it? Everybody's claiming to know. Few people will complete the path and cross to the farther shore. You know what, you've heard me say over and over again that the Buddha never saw himself as a savior, and he didn't teach a salvific religion. It's not for everyone, and it's lines like this that inform that. Few people will complete the path and cross the farther shore. Can you imagine a religious leader hoping to gather followers but saying just that you're likely not going to complete the path? I was taught just that for many, many years in modern Buddhism, that the culmination of the path is completely impossible, takes endless eons, but when it was presented as a religion, you do it anyway because it's what God or the Buddha or my associates want me to be. Contradicts everything the Buddha said. Few people will complete the path and cross to the farther shore. Why is that so important to us? Because it points us directly in the direction we need to be, and with the understanding that it's not always easy and it's not automatic. Excuse me. The Dhamma actually takes right effort, the sixth factor of the Eightfold Path. It takes perseverance. It takes understanding. But most importantly, as the Buddha is teaching here, it needs the right path. It requires the right path. Any other path that is adapted, accommodated, or embellished is no longer a Buddha's path, is it? And that doesn't mean it's bad or wrong or whatever it might be. It's simply not the Dhamma. And that's what the Buddha is referring to. That's what I talk about a lot. It's the essence of restraint, to practice just what an awakened human being taught and restrain oneself from grasping after something to add to this practice because in the moment it's not fulfilling my needs. The essence of true refuge is taking refuge in the Buddha's Dhamma and not something else. There's no refuge there. It's something else. It's a different practice. It may be interesting, exciting, distracting, but it's not Dhamma practice. Few people will complete the path and cross to the farther shore. Most will run up and down the shore. That's what the Buddha is referring to about grasping after anything and everything and hoping that it provides salvation. Running up and down the shore. Think about this. This is a statement that the Buddha made from his own observations from 2,600 years ago, and nothing has changed. Human beings are still running up and down the shore, screaming and hollering about how unfair things are, and never once addressing the fact that it's their own ignorance that makes them run up and down the far shore, or run up and down the shore, without actually trying to cross, using the metaphor, to the far shore of understanding. It's much easier to stay in that familiar place of confusion and anger and reaction, isn't it? Because that's basically what everybody else is doing. So let's all gather on the shore and freak out about what's occurring in the world, which is what human beings have been doing forever. Or we can take a breath, unite our minds back in our bodies, establish peace and tranquility, and then take another look at what's occurring from the framework of the Eightfold Path. And the world will look completely different because our perspective is completely different. Now our perspective is rooted in understanding what's occurring in the world. Now our perspective is looking out on the world from the perspective of understanding the three marks of existence. Remember how we concluded that 37-week course last summer on the three marks of existence? We concluded it with a very clear study of wise restraint at the sixth sense base. The Buddha is talking about that again here in this little chapter from the Dhammapada. The wise, practicing the perfectly taught Heartwood, will cross the realm of death, so difficult to cross. The realm of death, if we were all together, I'd ask you what the realm of death is so you could respond. The realm of death is ignorance. The Buddha always called living a life rooted in ignorance as like the living death. And it's a perfect description of it, isn't it? It's not too extreme. Because when I'm living a life ignorant of what's occurring, how can I possibly be living the life? I can't. I'm literally ignorant. I don't understand what's occurring in my life as my life unfolds because my mind is rooted in fabrications that have developed from ignorance of Four Noble Truths. As I develop the Dhamma and learn to see things from that right perspective, tranquility is maintained through that understanding, a calm and peaceful mind. So when a seemingly life-threatening virus that I have no control over emerges in the world, I don't have to lose my mind over it. When I see other people who seem intent on burning down the town that I'm living in, I don't have to lose my mind over it. That doesn't mean that I might lock the doors, put another lock on the door, or grab a hose to make sure I have a hose to put out a fire, but I won't lose my mind grabbing the hose or locking the front door. I'll maintain a calm and peaceful mind. In that way, so when someone walks by my field of vision, I won't feel the need to blow their heads off because they're a threat to me. Or I won't need to insist that someone else wear a mask because in this moment, I don't feel the need to wear a mask. I'll take responsibility for myself and I'll leave responsibility for other people's actions up to them. That's proper restraint. And as I develop the Dhamma to much more subtle and effective levels of living in the world, like the Buddha, my presence in the world will lead people. But I won't be an instigator anymore because I'll be acting out of wisdom and not out of self-centered arrogance and how things should be or how I want them to be. I'll maintain a calm and peaceful mind, and I'll be able to convey that to people with the courage of my convictions, the courage that comes from being established in the Eightfold Path. And you've heard me say this often, of the great power, the subtle power that comes from integrating the Eightfold Path as our framework, as my framework for living the world. Because, and I think each and every one of you has talked about having this experience of knowing now that your response to the world will be framed by right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Excuse me. It will be framed by right speech, right action, and right livelihood because of the integration of the Eightfold Path and the established right view I have in knowing that's how I live in the world. And so there is great freedom and power in knowing in this moment, there's nothing inside me. The Buddha talked about this upon his awakening too. There's nothing, the Buddha said, there's nothing inside me to provoke another moment clinging to the world. meaning entangled in the world in an ignorant way, in a fabricated way. There's nothing left within me to react to what's occurring in the world. I maintain a calm and peaceful mind, and I respond with concentration and refined mindfulness. The Buddha continues, the wise cultivate the Eightfold Path and abandon the dark paths. So again, the Buddha is referring to the common so-called religious or spiritual paths of his time. He encountered each and every one of them before his awakening and every day almost after his awakening. And as he was referring to here, he had the courage to always and systematically and, I'm missing a word, consistently come back to the Dhamma. He never entertained something just to make a student feel better, because he knew the cruelty of doing that is distracting that student away from the Dhamma. The wise cultivate the Eightfold Path and abandon the dark paths born of ignorance. Leaving behind entanglements with the world, the wise delight in their freedom. Abandoning sensual pleasure, free of clinging, the wise cleanse themselves of greed, aversion, and deluded thinking, the three defilements. Those who have fully developed the Heartwood, who have renounced craving, who now rejoice in pure detachment, free of the fetters, brilliant in their wisdom, they are called rightly self-awakened. That's the phrase that Buddha used to describe himself too, as rightly self-awakened. So he's concluding this chapter by reminding us that we, as fellow human beings, no different than Siddhartha Gautama, can and will become rightly self-awakened through the Eightfold Path as he did. That's today's talk on the Dhammapada. I think it's just a remarkable chapter. And by the way, we're going to, after we're done with this 27-week study, we're going to do a study of the entire Dhammapada. So let's start with Jane. Jane, how are you tonight?
I'm fine, John. The key word for me is restraint.
Yep.
That's what it's all about, and that's how I can best help this crazy world, is to keep a calm and peaceful mind and practice restraint.
Yep. That's that beautifully said. Thank you, Jane. Ram, how are you tonight?
I'm good. Yeah, I have nothing really to add. It was a good and deep teaching. But I'm going to remain in silence. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Lorna, how are you tonight?
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you, John.
Good to see you.
Thank you for the teaching. I think when you were reading through the list, it occurred to me there's a lot of almost rules coming into our lives at the moment. You know, there's rules about social distancing and rules about all sorts of things that are not normal. It's a bit of an unusual time, and we all seem to be living by the rules at the moment. And listening to your talk tonight, it's a lot more rules. It's probably just not the sutra I wanted to hear tonight. I don't know if I really want to sort of be concentrating on questioning if I have association, you know, my associations with people are, you know, which way or that way, or they support my Dharma practice or they don't, or, you know, and just sort of guide myself through the life using these rules. I'm just a bit fed up with it.
Yeah,
you know, the overall thing at the moment. So maybe this sutra was just not a good time for me today.
Yeah, thank you for your honesty. I guess to me the significant difference between the rules imposed on us through government restrict our freedom, and the so-called rules of the Dhamma actually establish freedom. So while we might have enough already of rules and things that I must do, the Dhamma is a way of escaping from the I'm going to use the word, the subversive control that's out there. And I don't mean that it's unnecessary, whatever, but it's very subtle. In fact, you could say that the Buddha's entire Dhamma is to recognize and establish that great freedom and disentangled from all the rules of the world. But of course, there's a structure and framework to be developed too. So, thank you, Lorna. Mary Beth, good to see you tonight.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, and that's mainly what I would say. Although I did I guess see myself in the analogy of the running up and down the shore. So I found that pretty amusing.
Yeah, it is.
How
It's what we
much,
all.
you know, and because stated that way, it just so clear how fruitless it is. You know, it doesn't really get you anywhere, but I guess there's something about it that makes you feel like you're doing something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's really it. Just happy to see all the faces and be here, and thank you, John.
Thank you. It's always good to see you. And what you said just relates back to what Lorna did say too, that the being confused by all the rules has us running up and down the shore, doesn't it? And the Dhamma gives us that direction to get to the other side, to leave that all behind us. Glad you joined us. Kevin, how are you tonight?
Good, John. Very well. Thank you for this teaching. I appreciate its depth and scope. I did like one part about the associations. Abandon ignorant associations, avoid fellowship with the fools, associate with the wise, and seek fellowship. The first part, abandon ignorant associations, that had me thinking, and I guess I would ask the question, is that seems to be almost internal associations that we fabricate, is where I was seeing that. Abandon internal association, and then, you know, avoiding fellowship and associating are sort of the manifestations of that internal fabrication or association that we've developed. And I also liked when the Buddha says, the wise do not talk foolishly of their desires. The wise remain calm through happiness and sorrow. And we know in the Mula Sutta, the Buddha explains that all phenomena are rooted in desire, and fear is rooted in desire. And that comes back to what we're sort of talking about, the fear of wanting things to be back to normal, or the fear of wanting things to be different. And John, you said it earlier, you know, that's why we take to the Dhamma, because the world, you know, will continue to be that way. We have the ability to be rightly self-awakened and follow this path. So I thank you for that teaching.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up again. I mean, that is the point, you know. No matter what is occurring in the world, at all times, we have the ability and the wherewithal as human beings to awaken. Brett, how are you?
Good to be here. Thank you for your teaching, and thank you for what everybody's saying tonight. Yeah, I got a lot out of it. I definitely see all the practical points in it, and running up and down the river, and restraint. And from what teaching is that? You know, that's just the basic thing of we can't be anything more than I guess what earth, you know.
You're talking about the sixth property person?
Yeah.
Yep, the Dhatu Vibhanga Sutta.
Okay.
Yeah, in that sutta, the Buddha teaches that all human beings can only be this: the four elements, earth, wind, fire, and water. The sixth property of space, there needs to be something for that life to manifest. You know, in other words, you wouldn't be able to breathe if you didn't have a space where your mouth is. So that's one of the properties. And the sixth property is consciousness, that which is animating the elements in the space property. And so if that which is animating the four elements and the space property, which you could also call form, is rooted in ignorance, then it can only manifest ignorance, right? I mean, it just makes pure sense. As an awakened human being figured this all out. I was mentioning to Ram earlier, I'm glad I didn't have to do it, because I couldn't figure that out. except that it's so obvious, isn't it? So all that we can ever be, no matter what we acquire, no matter what positions we might develop for ourselves in life, you can never change the fact that all a human being can ever be is those four elements, the space property and the consciousness property, known as a six-property person. What we do with that life is up to us as individuals. We can chase after things that we might think are important, or we can develop a calm and peaceful mind and stay there. You know, that's really the choice that we have. And you brought up an important point, Brett. So thank you for bringing it up.
Thank
It's
you.
good to see you tonight. Was there anything else?
Other than the fact that, it just made me feel, about just, not having a distracted mind and, realizing that that's really the only true, taking to the Dharma, and that's really the only place you can seek refuge is not being able to lose your mind and being able to stay in that, in that undiluted thinking and all that. So.
Yes, thank you for saying it. And in that way, it's almost a bit of a paradox. As we develop full human maturity and learn the radical acceptance of an awakened human being, then we truly are at peace with all things, aren't we? And it's from understanding. It's not from grudgingly accepting things. It's from knowing that what is present in the world is simply present in the world. It's not present in the world because of me, and it shouldn't not be present in the world because of me. It's simply present in the world. It has nothing to do with me, as does anything else. There's nothing in the world that can possibly be seen as taken personally unless I decide to do it. No, there's nothing. And there's nothing that anybody could argue should be taken personally unless you decide that it must be taken personally. Because nothing is. There's nothing that a human being can be than this six-property person. And that informs our understanding of why should I grasp after anything? Why would I want to attach anything to that? Why wouldn't I want to keep this six-property person pure and clean? Why would I want to drag stuff around? I don't. I mean, that is, again, we're talking about practical freedom. I don't have views and images and perceptions and fabrications of who and what I am. I'm a six-property person who understands the Dhamma. Peace prevails. Michael, how are you tonight?
Hi, John. Hi, everybody. I like what you said, John, saying that nothing left within me to react to the world. Non-reactive, dispassionate, understanding fabrications and distractions as the mind stays united in the body. And that will improve our quality of mind and maintain that equanimous, peaceful state that we are striving for. I just like that. I really like that nothing left within me to react to the world and what it actually means, and that's key there. It makes me realize that that non-reactivity to this to this world that's going on right now is brings peace of mind to me, actually. So I thank you for that, and it resonated within me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I should say the actual exact phrase, that translated phrase, is upon the Buddha's awakening, he put his left hand over his belly, or over his heart, you might say, and he touched the ground with his right hand to symbolize that he had overcome the world. He understands the world now. He's not entangled in the world. Pointing his finger down that way, always misinterpreted, simply means I'm above this. I've overcome this. And his words were, there's nothing left within me to provoke another moment rooted in ignorance. That's the description of an awakened human being. Nothing left within us to provoke another moment rooted in ignorance. And it's entirely doable, isn't it? We all understand that now. We can rid ourselves of all views rooted in ignorance by using the word, I like the way why Lorna framed it, by following the rules, following the instruction manual. It's just that way. Thank you, Michael. Julia, how are you? I'm glad you made it tonight.
I'm glad too. Thank you, John. I really enjoyed listening to your talk about the sutta. There's a lot of beautiful metaphors and things in the sutta. The Buddha tells us to abandon ignorant associations. And with fellowship
Hold
with
on, come here,
fools.
Bones. Sorry about that. I didn't hear you, Julia. Come here.
And he tells us to associate with like-minded individuals and kindred spirits that seek the Heartwood. Well, I look at it as that is exactly what we're doing. That's the Sangha, you know.
Yeah.
It's a community where you can immerse yourself in the Dhamma and you support each other. And we understand each other and we have compassion for each other because we understand what we're each going through to experience restraint. And also there's something very intimate when you sit and you meditate with others. It's a very special moment. And so I think that's what the Buddha was meaning when he said that. I didn't think he meant that in any type of negative way. He was saying you support yourself by being supported with other people that are like you, you know?
Yes.
And so that's what I got from that. But then the other beautiful thing that I liked was when the Buddha said, I'm going to read it because I wrote down a little thing. Buddha uses several beautiful metaphors of how the wise restrain themselves. The wise are the irrigators that direct the rivers, the fletchers that straighten the arrows, the carpenter that sharpens the wood. And I said, we are untamed at the point of contact, but understanding impermanence and acting from right view, we can direct, straighten, and shape our mind to be dispassionate to all sensory bombardment. Just as a rock lies undisturbed by the wind, we will be unmoved by personal blame or praise. So I saw that and I said, it kind of made me feel like an artist, maybe molding clay, and it's my mind. I'm trying to condition myself to be different. And just like the fletcher straightens the arrows, it's me straightening my mind to have right view. And so I looked at it as that. And I don't know if that's correct, but that's that's the way I saw it. So I really like that part of it also. Yeah. It made us totally responsible for our mind, controlling our mind, taking, and restraining ourselves and becoming awakened.
That's so beautifully said, Julia. And we are the ones that are responsible. I have no, it's the essence of foolishness for me to blame someone else or a president or a senator or the worldly conditions or a protester or a rioter or anyone for the quality of my mind. Because as soon as I do it, I've lost my mind, haven't I? When I insist that it's worldly conditions or the people of the world that affect my mind, I have no restraint. I'm letting everything in and I'm reacting to everything in that way. And that is a mind rooted in ignorance. A mind rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths will grasp at every single thing that arises in the world and make it mine. And when I start doing that, then I got to say I like this and I don't like that. If I stop making things mine, I just love it, Lauren. If I follow the rules, then nothing is mine. There's nothing to upset this calm and peaceful mind that I've worked so hard to develop, except Bodhi when he barks. Here he goes. Even Bodhi. I'm going to get to Josh in a second. I don't want to think that I've forgotten about it. But this is what we're talking about right now, what has developed in this particular class is the essence, and I say this often, but this is such a perfect example of the importance of a well-focused Sangha. Because each and every one of you has contributed so greatly to each other, to the Sangha tonight. And now I'm going to hand it off to Josh. Try to top that, my friend. Last but not least, our friend Josh. How are you tonight?
Well, I'm good, John.
Good to see you.
I'm trying to figure some of this stuff out. I've really enjoyed what everybody had to say tonight, and you too, John. It was a great lesson. I have some friends that hold, and sometimes they're just acquaintances that hold kind of violently different opinions about life and the world than I do. And one of the things I think I've kind of gotten out of looking at Buddhism and is that what people said earlier was that restraint for me seems to be manifested in being kind and compassionate, if I can be, instead of even though I disagree. I'm not always successful at it, but I know my own personal life, whenever I've done something wrong, I respond much more positively to kindness and compassion from others than being told what to think or what to do or whatever. And just how that all ties in, I'm not really sure either. But I do know that if I'm cognizant of where my feelings are, and I can sometimes grasp them soon enough, and kind of reflect back on the cascade of clean and consciousness and all those things, and kind of step back and not get caught up in that. It's been very helpful, and that's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Josh. It sounds like you're saying that you noticed that some of your friends and associates have really gotten very upset over the last few months, and you've been able to maintain a measure of calm and peace.
They've been that way all their life.
Well, yeah, and that's I think everyone here would say that same thing. I very rarely get into arguments with. Very rarely. I don't think I get into any arguments with anyone anymore, even though in the past my life was based on arguments. I used to keep myself liquored up by winning arguments in bars. That's what I did. And now, I mean, I don't talk. I don't even talk about the things that I talk about here outside. I just don't argue with people. I don't see any reason to it, to argue any point in the impermanent world. What I do think is most important for me to do in the world is be who we are. Is to be an awakened human being, or at least as awakened as I can be, because then I know that I'm contributing to the good in the world. I know from my own behavior. Again, this is that power of integrating the Eightfold Path. I know from my own behavior, my own understanding, that I'm doing everything I can for the good of the world. That doesn't mean that I'm going to save the world either. It simply means that I'm no longer going to contribute to the stress and suffering that is inherent in a worldly human life. And that's everything. There's a subtle aspect. I talked about this recently. When we, nobody here, in fact, I would say this is true about almost everybody on the planet, but nobody here in this room intentionally goes out to hurt people. I don't think any of you ever had, and even if you did, it's kind of irrelevant to what I'm about to say. But we all have, haven't we? And when we know that we've hurt people by our actions, we create our own inner tension and our own fear that we might do it again, because we hurt someone without intending to do it. It can attack our minds in a way that we're no longer sure of our own behavior. And so it does create an internal tension and an internal doubt about ourselves. This is why I say that if I could ever write this book clearly, that the ultimate problem with human beings is the self-loathing that we all live with. And it comes from that type of thinking, that I've done something that hurt someone, even inadvertently. And now when I've developed the Eightfold Path and know that I've integrated right speech, right action, and right livelihood, resting in right view, I know I'm no longer going to do that again. I know I'm no longer going to hurt people. And I didn't realize it for a long time. In fact, I didn't realize it at all until I stopped doing it. But how much freedom there is to know that the next word out of my mouth is harmless and will stay that way, unless I do leave the Dhamma, or smoke a joint or do something else like that. This is what the Dhamma does. And that belief that I've hurt someone and I might do it again is a fabrication, but it's real. It's impacted my mind. It's conditioned my thinking. And it's taken away a surety of life, of moment by moment, away from me. But it's not the world didn't do it. I did it from my own actions and my own lack of understanding. But now I know. As the Buddha says here, now I can act with wisdom. And it makes all the difference in the world. I can incorporate useful rules and not be bothered by societal rules that I simply follow because why not? Why fight the world as long as they're not hurting anyone? So that's my second talk for tonight. A remarkable class. Does anybody have anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, John. Can I just say
Please.
something, John?
Of course.
In reference, and actually to what you were saying, and to Josh, actually, I was like picking up like the 3 marks of existence there, and who we are in this world, and how we perceive ourselves, and understanding the relationship between anatta, anicca, and dukkha, and realizing that we can see ourselves, we have to forgive ourselves first. We have to have that compassion, develop that compassion, for ourselves before we can impart it to others. And that's the relationship that's the what we're to gain from understanding the 3 marks of existence. Seeing that we're, an existence, where an ignorant, not understanding impermanence and forever trying to maintain ourselves in an impermanent world. We see that as it's basically a lost cause. It'll lead to nothing but rebirth and age and death. And so, again, like, I think a lot of us, or myself, I should say, I shouldn't talk for anyone else, for myself, but like a lot of times, like until I've had this kind of an understanding about the 3 marks of existence, I would oftentimes think of like, the things, maybe the way I mistreated people, or didn't do the right thing at, when it was needed. And it's easy to like beat yourself up in life and like convince yourself that like, well, how could I be a good person? If I'm like this, or if I was like this. But that again comes from understanding that like that was an individual who was not knowing, of right action, right speech, right view, the Eightfold Path, just to sum that up quickly. And once you kind of like start cultivating that Eightfold Path, and and you understand the 3 marks of existence, like you can forgive yourself. And then you can understand others, maybe like Josh, your friends, and where they are in their lives, and not have like an opinion, either way, but understand that maybe they need to, be compassionate towards them, as you had mentioned, but be compassionate with yourself first, and forgive yourself first, and impart it to others. And this way, you'll understand them. You'll understand them better. Anyhow, that's just thoughts.
Again, beautifully said, Michael.
John, can I say something?
Of course.
I was actually, Mike's exactly taking the words out of my mouth. When you were talking earlier, John, about that you can go out into the world and know that you're not going to hurt anybody. I take that, I understand what you mean by that, but I think there's kind of like an underlying theme to the Buddha's teachings, that you have to get your own house in order first.
Yeah.
And whereas you were projecting it that you aren't going to hurt anybody else, I think the first principle is that you don't hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't project anything negative towards anybody else, because you are pure within yourself. Yep. Which is kind of what Michael, I think, Mike was saying, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of Mike and I just sort of like, think that, I think, at the moment. But, the thing is to get, so you don't hurt yourself in your own thoughts is the number one rule.
Yes,
it's the number one principle.
That's the right. Yeah, that's the number one rule. I like that way of putting it. and it is by letting go of all fabricated views of myself, again, the 3 marks of existence, I naturally am harmless towards others because there's nothing left to provoke any type of hurtful thought, word, or deed. It's just that way. Everything resolves within everything in the Dhamma resolves within the individual in this moment. That's the only time that Dhamma is present and practice, is right here, right now. We move towards it, as we enter the Dhamma and our minds are distracted to the past or the future, we start developing jhana that brings our mind and our body into the present moment. That's how it works. That's why jhana meditation is taught by the Buddha and nothing else. And what a great class. Anyone else? Before we end, just to make the announcement once more, we'll be back in Frenchtown on June 20th. I would say that Tuesday is probably going to wait at least till the middle of July, but we'll continue to have our Tuesday classes online here too. So we'll finish with Metta as we always do. Oh, I better hurry up because I'm losing my battery. These are the Buddha's words on Metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. Somebody left. Gently close your eyes, gently close your mouths, and take a moment to become mindful of your in-breath and your out-breath. And these are the Buddha's words on Metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class tonight. Peace.
Thank you, Don.
I'm going to get off. I'll see you all Saturday, I hope.